Okay. All right, folks. Welcome, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order, please. April the 27th, and I'd like to start with the Aboriginal Acknowledgement. We would like to acknowledge the land on which we are gathered is the traditional territory of the Tanaha, the Silix and Sinix peoples, and is home to Métis and many diverse Aboriginal persons. We honour their connection to the land and rivers and respect the importance of the environment to our strength as a community. And with that, there are no late items that I'm aware of, and I'd like a motion to adopt the agenda, please. Moved by Councillor Renwick, second by Councillor Morrison. All in favour? Carried. Thank you. A motion to adopt the minutes of the Committee of the Whole meeting on March the 23rd, 2021. Moved by Councillor Morrison, second by Councillor Woodward. All in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. Public participation, and we've changed this format because of COVID, but people can write into us, and Gabe has a letter from a member of the public to read to you.
That's correct. We received a request to have this comment read at this meeting, so I'm just going to read it as it was provided to us. Hello, my name is Brenton Raby. I reside in Nelson. My home and commercial property are located adjacent to the 700 block of Baker Street. For all intents and purposes, my property would be considered essential in any development involving the entire block. During last week's discussion on alternate locations for the transit exchange, the 700 block of Baker was referred to as stale by Councillor Page. In response to his question, staff said, the city vision for this block is to look beyond what is there now. It will be redeveloped in the future. Staff went on to say, we do not force them out, people cash out. I say the city does not force, but it can neglect. 5 years waiting for a street sign at the 700 block of Baker Street and still nothing. Staff further referenced the previous council's urban design strategy. I thank Councillor Renwick for challenging this assertion by staff and noting that there already exist family businesses and family residences here. I have been part of the urban design strategy from the beginning, and I have long objected to its erasure of my home and those property owners already here. So today I say to you clearly that there is mistrust to the city's vision of infill and development, and it can be rooted in experience and knowledge. In conclusion, for me to cash out of my unceded property at 512 Hendricks, I would require $420 million. Thanks, Councillor Renwick, for noting that we exist. Respectfully, Brenton Raby.
Thank you. Thank you, Gabe. All right, our first delegation is Community Futures Rural and Northern Immigration Program. And Erin Rooney and Andrea Wilkie are here from Community Futures to make a presentation to us. Welcome.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Welcome.
So I think I'm going to kick things off and then hand things over to Erin. And nice to see you, Councillor Charlwood, and welcome to the council. It's nice to see a new face. So I'm Andrea Wilkie. I'm the Executive Director at Community Futures Central Kootenay, and we have a agreement with Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship Canada to be a pilot region for the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot. So how this came to be was 2 years ago, I'll call them IRCC, invited rural communities to submit an application to be part of this pilot. And so I received a phone call around that time from employers like Supco Transportation, from partners like
Andrea, can I stop you for a moment? Somebody's not muted. Okay, Andrea.
I think that might be better.
That's better.
Is that good? Okay. So I received calls from partners like Supco Transportation and Selkirk College saying it would be fantastic if our community could apply to be a part of this pilot, because this would be a great way to help our employers recruit skilled employees, as well as retain great employees that they have that are not from Canada. So I reached out to local government partners and economic development partners in Trail, Rosslyn, and Castlegar and said, hey, what do you think? Trail and area was actually looking at bidding on this as well. So we decided let's come together as a region. And so we did that. We also pulled in Columbia Basin Alliance for Literacy because they offer settlement services, and that's a key part of this initiative. And we submitted our application, and we were one of 11 communities in Canada that was chosen to be part of this pilot, and one of 2 in BC, with the other being the Vernon area. From there, we had to secure some funding to have somebody coordinate this for us. So we were able to secure funding from the province of BC and from Western Diversification. And with that funding, we were able to create Erin's role, which is to coordinate this pilot for a 3-year time frame. So that's a bit of background on how we got here. And with that, I'll turn it over to Erin to let you know how the pilot's been going.
Hi, good evening, everyone on Council and Mayor Dooley. Thank you so much for having us. Can everybody hear me okay?
Yes.
Yeah, great. So I'll share a slide presentation with you tonight, and just to give you a review of the whole pilot, and have some time for questions or thoughts afterwards. So I will share. Do you see my slides?
Yes, we can.
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So like Andrea mentioned, it's called the Rural and Northern Immigration Pilot. We like to call it RNIP for short. So I'll just jump right in. What is RNIP? It's a community-based immigration pilot that tests targeted attraction and settlement approaches at the local level. It's a pathway to permanent residency, so it is a permanent residency immigration program. The guiding principles are community-driven and responsive to local economic development needs. It's focused on retention and economic independence of newcomers. It's complementary to other federal and provincial immigration initiatives, and it's part of the solution, not the only solution. And here are the federal eligibility requirements. So to even be eligible for the pilot, you need to meet these 7 requirements. So you need to have a minimum amount of education. You do need to have some work experience. You need to have an offer of employment in the region, a full-time job offer, a permanent full-time job offer. You need to pass a language test and intent to reside. You need some funds if you're coming from outside of the community or outside of Canada. And you need a community recommendation from our steering committee. And then you can apply for permanent residency under RNIP. And to speak to the intent to reside piece. Sorry, there's just a little bit of noise there. Intent to reside, it must be shown by the applicant and is based on information available at the time of assessment. Intention to reside is a forward-looking assessment. Some of the factors that we examine to establish intention to reside can include knowledge of the community, actions taken to put plans into place to establish in the community, linkages to the community, and linkages to other surrounding communities. The West Kootenay RNIP has created our own community criteria point-based ranking system, so we can accept the best candidates for the region. Apologies in advance, this slide is slightly blurry. This is our process flow. And like Andrea mentioned, we were selected, one of 11 communities in Canada. And the job offer could, or the beginning of the job offer can either come from the employer or the candidate. So I can be approached by either of these 2. And the candidate submits their application for recommendation to the pilot. We meet monthly, our steering committee, to review candidates. And actually in between here, we interview all candidates, myself and one other steering committee member. And if they receive a recommendation, they can apply for permanent residency to IRCC. And right in here, they might be eligible for a work permit if they require one. So that work permit can bridge them for 1 year while they're waiting for permanent residency. IRCC assesses them against federal selection criteria and admissibility requirements. They obtain permanent residence. This is a slide just to show all the different communities that have used RNIP since June 2020. We're actually celebrating 1 year. We launched May 11th. So the pilot's been super popular since then. We've made 105 recommendations since June. Our first meeting was in June of 2020. So here we see Nelson has used the pilot 44 times. That doesn't actually mean 44 employers, because some employers have used the pilot multiple times in each region. But this is the breakdown of the jobs and the recommendations that have been had in the region. And the eligibility that we require as a region, but just a little bit of background there. The pilot's available until the end of December 2022. We have approximately 150 allocations a year. Last year we had 100 allocations and we ended up giving 80 recommendations, and we only started in June, so really popular. Employers must be vetted by ARNIP to be eligible to participate. There are priority sectors we've identified in the region, and people who have job offers or are already working in those sectors are exempt from meeting our minimum amount of points. So they include truck drivers, healthcare aides, early childhood educator, construction managers, automotive mechanics. We also have a couple of other that aren't on there, and we're always looking to add more. So we're doing lots of research with employers in the region to find out what's the skilled labor that they're missing and have been potentially advertising for a long time. You do need a minimum wage requirement of $17 an hour if you live and work in the region, or if you're coming from overseas or from outside the West Kootenays, we want them to be making $22 an hour. There is an employer-specific work permit, as I mentioned, for 1 year. And Andrea mentioned we do partner with Columbia Basin Alliance for Literacy, and they provide the settlement supports to candidates. And we sort of do a mentor matching with them if any of the candidates do want supports. And we have a regional website, and there it is. And this is me. If you have any further questions beyond tonight or want to direct any employers or candidates my way, happy to speak with people all the time.
Yeah,
so
thanks.
I'll just
Thanks
stop
very much,
sharing.
Erin.
You're welcome.
Yeah, thank you. Any questions for Erin or Andrea? Councillor Woodward.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was wondering, sorry, when did this ARNIP program start again?
We launched on May 11th, and we had our first meeting last June. But we've been working at the pilot since the fall of 2019.
And I was wondering, like, the people who are coming, do you do like I don't know, interviews with them to see how they are blending into the community? Like, are they blending into the community? Do they feel like they can be part of the community here? Or do they feel separated? I was wondering about kind of where they're at once they kind of work through the program. Do they move on from Nelson?
Great questions. Actually, out of the 105, well, it's 131 now, recommendations that we've given, only 5 of those people don't live in Canada or don't even live in the West Kootenays. So the majority of people are Selkirk graduates. So they've been living here for 2 years or longer, most of them 3 years or longer. So they've either been working for the employer already, they have housing, they've got friends, they've definitely integrated into the community already. And just to speak to some of the candidates who are coming from overseas, I've just had incredible interviews with them. Like, one man's coming from the Ukraine with his family, and he's a beekeeper, and he's already looked into the Castlegar market where he's going to sell his honey, and it's just fantastic what people are saying before they even arrive.
All right, just a supplemental.
Yes, go ahead, and then Councillor Renwick.
Thank you. So I guess my query is, I hope, and in my head I see Nelson as an open-hearted place that accepts people as they are, and I hope that when these people come, they feel like they can just be part of the community and not separated out, or that they can do as they please, and they can just feel like another person that has come to the Kootenays to start a life.
Yeah, we do quite extensive meetings with the employers prior to giving ARNIP recommendations. We are asking employers to be very active in what we're calling the community hug. And we want them to be, to help those people settle well if they're not here already. Another example, a man from Austria is coming with his family. The employer is housing them on his land in a cabin in Harrop. And of course, Columbia Basin Alliance for Literacy is supporting us, supporting the pilot with settlement support. So helping people if they're looking for services once they get here, daycare, anything, do they need supports in any way? I mentioned daycare. So it feels like it's quite a good wraparound happening already. And like I said, many of the candidates do already live here and have a life here.
Great, thank you so much.
That answers your questions, yeah.
It's great, thank you.
Welcome.
Councillor Renwick.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you for that, Aaron and Andrea. And I read through your presentation, and it's very interesting. I just want to go back to the pie graph that you showed, second to last slide, I think it was. And Nelson has, I believe, 44% of this program employed here. I guess my question is, why are we that much higher than both Trail and Castlegar? And can you give us some sense of the jobs that are available in Nelson?
The jobs that are available in Nelson?
If we've got 44% of the employment, where are these people working, I guess, is what I'm asking. What types of jobs? Certainly not in the industrial sector, because we don't have much of one. So,
yeah, absolutely. The majority of the people working in Nelson are working in healthcare as healthcare aides. They're working in the hospitality sector. So the Hume, all the restaurants on Baker have used the pilot. The Prestige has used the pilot multiple times as well. Those are some of the major employers. But then we've got the 7-Eleven, the Panago, quite a few, the A&W, so quite a few fast food in 2020 was used quite a bit. We have more hospitality in Nelson than Trail and Castlegar, so they use the pilot a lot in 2020. Trail, we're seeing also some hospitality, but more fast food, but managers. So often they're also at manager positions. Castlegar has also got a very big uptake with healthcare aides. So Castlegar, Castleview Care Center used the pilot multiple times as well.
Thank you.
thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Councillor Page.
Yeah, I want to pick up where Councillor Renwick kind of left off, because that was one of my questions there was about the criteria matrix that we're using. We've got these priority knock codes that we're going after in terms of automotive and trucking and the like. But we have a list that's quite extensive, and I was certainly surprised to see the fast food industry as well represented on that list as it was for the people that we're bringing into the country and immigrating. Is this program, are we targeting skilled labor, or are these roles management roles, or is this frontline workers in these positions? Just seems a lot to bring someone over to be flipping burgers, and I don't mean that in a capricious way. It just does seem misaligned in my mind, but perhaps you could speak to it.
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. They are usually manager roles, but we pivoted in December 2020 because we didn't want to be a fast food pilot, and we changed our criteria, and now you do need to meet a certain amount of points to be eligible. So that generally we're seeing people needing to work and live in the region at least for 1 year after being a Selkirk graduate. So nobody is coming here to flip burgers from outside of Canada. They've all been in these jobs throughout their whole time at Selkirk generally, and have kind of moved their way up in that role. This pilot, what's really great about this pilot is it's very low barrier. So other immigration streams can support, the tech industry, can support other very highly skilled jobs, because you can get permanent residency faster through those streams than you can with RNEP. So RNEP is great for what we call NOC C and D, and for people who do have less work experience. So those would be some of like a healthcare aide and a truck driver. Those are considered not high-skilled jobs, but it's very essential in our region and across Canada. It's been identified by RCC. And early childhood educator as well. These healthcare aid and early childhood really aligns well with programs at Selkirk too. They do have 2-year programs that support those jobs. So it's great to see that those people graduate from those jobs and then actually stay in our community and work in those roles. Yeah, I hope that answers your question, Councillor Kate.
Thank you, Aaron.
You're welcome.
And any further questions for Aaron or Andrea? Aaron, I just had one question. So looking at your presentation, the bulk of the people that you're settling have been here, as you mentioned.
Yes.
Is there any outreach to your program? As an example, if I lived in Belfast, how would I know your program existed?
So what we're doing is outreach to employers. So doing a big push to see what's a really great piece about this pilot as well is age is not a barrier. And that is a huge barrier in other immigration programs. If you're 36 or over, you're kind of dead in the water to immigrate to Canada.
Yeah.
This pilot allows for older people who, who have lots of experience. So if you're like a construction manager who lives in Belfast, then a construction company in Nelson or in the West Kootenays needs to do their HR recruitment and look for those skilled labor. Right now, we're in the middle of helping somebody come from South Africa who's going to be working for North Mountain Construction in Nelson. So he's a construction manager with 25 plus years experience. He's a civil engineer. It's a great win-win opportunity, right? Because something like construction managers, those are jobs that they're finding difficult, like the industry's finding a hard time finding those people who are who have experience. They don't want to move here if they're 45 or 50, but we want them. So RNIP's a great program for that. So I'll do outreach to employers to let them know that this pilot's available to them and can help them bring people from overseas. This pilot has also allowed for there's so much interest internationally in this pilot. We get hundreds of emails weekly from international candidates, but we don't do recruitment with candidates. So then obviously I do reach out to them and let them know, take a look at the job boards, look at the KCBS job board, look at Indeed. If you see jobs that are posted, reach out to the employers. That is a great pathway for them.
I will just speak anecdotally that whenever I post a job now, we definitely get a lot of people specifically ask if it qualifies for the RNIP program.
Right.
Thank you, Aaron. That's fantastic. And as far as the skilled jobs go, anytime I drive past one of those chip trucks, it takes a lot of skill to drive one of those things through the Kootenays, I can tell you. So we're very fortunate to have people take those jobs on. We're very fortunate. Andrea, did you have anything you wanted to add?
Yeah, I was just going to say, if we were to leave you with a call to action, it's just to let employers know about this pilot. If you hear of employers that are having a hard time filling a position or have a great employee that they're wanting to retain, help us spread the word.
Thank you. Thank you very much to both of you. All right.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. You're welcome to stick around because we got a really exciting presentation coming on right behind you here. We got Deanna sitting in the wings here.
I'm going to stick around.
Sorry, Deanna. Oh, no, Andrea's sticking around. So Aaron left. Okay, next up is there'll be some good questions, I imagine, for you tonight. Diana Dooks, Executive Director of the Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism, is presenting to Council with regards to the status of the tourism and hospitality industry in our region following a year of pandemic, along with the recent reintroduction of pandemic-related restrictions. And man, I'll tell you, you've had your hands full for the last year, Diana. I can say it's amazing. Anyway, you've got the floor.
Okay, hi everybody, and thank you, Your Worship, Mayor Dooley, and all of the councillors, and welcome, Councillor Charlwood. Lovely to see you here at this table. Now, I do have a slide show. I'm not sure how I share it, or do you guys have it there already? And
yeah,
I just
yes, we do. We have your
Okay.
presentation, so you don't need to put it on the screen if you can't do it. It's fine.
No. Yeah, I'll just have it on my screen here and look at it.
Yeah.
I did this presentation, I wrote it about 2 weeks ago, submitted it, and
Diana.
If it's not difficult to share your screen, it might be great because we are streaming this meeting for members of the public to be able to see the presentation. That could be useful. It should just be one button on the WebEx platform that allows you to share your screen.
I'm able to do that too if anyone needs.
do you, I don't see, let's see here. Where does anyone
Might just be at the bottom where it says
better
share.
direct? Yeah, it's grayed out, the share button on mine.
Let me see if I can add that for you.
No, it's still grayed out.
Okay, well, that might be on your end.
Do you want me to share it on mine?
Sure, if
Should
you
I
put
try
it up,
sharing
Kevin,
this?
that'd be fine, yeah. And
Yeah, that's weird.
you can follow along.
No, sorry, I can't see my
There you
banner
go.
here. You don't have to.
Can you see that, Diana?
Yeah, I can. Thanks.
Okay.
So yeah, I did this 2 weeks ago, and a lot has shifted since then. So if I was to redo this presentation, it would be a little bit different. To summarize the past year, I think the word that resonates today is devastating. But we'll move on to the next slide and get into some details. This slide actually just is a little bit of a summary, just in case people need to be refreshed on who we are. We are a destination marketing organization. We work with tourism-related businesses across this whole region. As of April of 2020, we added on the East Shore, so that's a whole new area for us. We've been in operation since 2009. I've been with Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism since 2012, in my 9th year. Our funding primarily comes from the hotel tax, which is 2%. Some destination marketing organizations collect 3%. We renewed our DMO last year, and the accommodators wish to stay at 2% rather than go to 3%. So just so you know that that's where that 2% comes from. In a typical year, we grow between 7 to 10%. However, this year, it's been all over the map. 1 month will be up 10%, and then summer was 30% up. So it's been very atypical, as you are all aware of. Next slide, Kevin. So throughout COVID, we've been very active in lots of different initiatives right from the get-go. We've been using our Finding Awesome tagline, hashtag really well, starting with a within, later, now dream. Unfortunately, we got to the now, and now we're back in the dream stage again, as things have shifted and the variant is out and about. A priority throughout COVID has also been to keep the region front of mind to locals and to visitors. We don't want to go black, they say, and dark. We want to still be out there, although we're not telling people to come visit here right now. We still want to be there for them and then planning the future trips. The list here is a bunch of the different initiatives that we've done. I won't read them out individually, but if you go to the next slide, Kevin. So this is a sample of some of the stuff that we've done.
Excuse me, Diana.
Yeah.
I just want to catch up. I see a hand up. I don't know if that means somebody wishes to ask you a question. But I think
Sure.
It's probably better if we let you go through your presentation and then do questions at the end. Would that be best?
I'm good with either, honestly.
Yeah, let's go through
Whatever.
it and then we'll do it at the end. So please take a note,
Okay.
Council, if you have a question.
Okay. Yeah, so this is some of the materials that we've done. We've worked with different organizations, Community Futures, Nelson and Area Economic Development, Village of Caslow, East Shore, the Chambers, in all of those communities, developing and distributing all of this content, being a really key communication tool to the tourism businesses in the area. So you can go to the next one. This is just a few more samples. We also jumped into the travel vouchers. We did that a couple of months ago, and that actually ends at the end of May. And we did a dining out campaign as the most recent one. We've been doing a lot of local advertising. And then a big project, we had a map on our website. And what we did is we created some really cool filters. And I do encourage all of you to go there. The one up on the screen is the dining page. And so what we've done is we can now filter by patios. You can go on there and across the entire region find the patios. And not only the patio, you can find out what kind of food they're serving. So there's all these filters in there. And takeout, we have a filter for that. We even have a general tab just for what's open, because at the very beginning of this, we needed a list of what's open. So we pivoted and we shifted and have refined our website to accommodate the needs of COVID. The next one. So those were kind of specific COVID initiatives. And as I said, we've also been trying to keep front of mind, not just to locals, but to visitors. We have a very exciting Our Place video series we've been running. We have 4 videos that are out. Anybody seen any of the Our Place videos?
Yeah.
Yeah. We have another one coming out on this Thursday. If anyone knows Game Share, I won't give you too much information on it and let you see it, but it's very good. It's really heartwarming. And these are there just to give recognition to our place, our people, and our passions. It's keeping, again, our total area front of mind. Other initiatives, yeah, there's a whole list of stories and assets, and we're building content. We're going to be taking more videos and more photos as we move forward. And we also work with a whole bunch of different sectors on that last slide. We work with them and they continually do the marketing, like the Mountain Biking Association, the Fishing Associations, BC Ale Trail. So we do work in partnership with them. We give them some funding, we give them content, video, etc., and they actually do marketing also for us and with us. Next slide is just a sample of some of those ongoing pieces and what they look like. The top left corner is a Kootenay Mountain Culture ad. We have an inspiration page. That is an initiative that is ongoing. Excuse me. And that one is actually photographers in residence. So again, keeping the images and the content going and letting people see what's going on. Right now, Madeleine Gunet is our photographer in residence. Next month is Jesse Chapakowski from the Caslo area. We have a stories page that also allows you guys to submit your photos if you want to. And we have a golf campaign going on right now, and then the Our Place videos. And yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. And with the new dining changes, I'm actually going to be reaching out to all of you with an influencer initiative that is quite exciting. So we're going to be involving council as well as local citizens, people that are high profile. So you'll be seeing that email coming from me in the next couple of days. We do a lot of outreach. We always have. This year has been phenomenal as far as working with the City of Nelson, Village of Caslo, NADP, International Selkirk Loop. I'm on their board working with them. So there's a full list there of the organizations that we do work with. I won't ramble them all off, but we have a lot of communication going on. We do a newsletter internally. We do a newsletter externally to visitors. We also have a closed Facebook group for outreach, and of course the email and phone are constant communication tools. The photo on the right is actually one of Madeleine Gunet's photos from this month, photo in residence, so it's a beautiful little shot there. And members, so we have at this point 199 members. Actually, we have 200 now because the Black Cauldron has joined. Haven't been there yet. I don't know if anyone else has been there yet to check it out. And there is no fee. We changed our model last year. We announced it at our AGM last year. So rather than $15 fee, we have a request for people to back to Nelson Kootenay Lake Tourism, which actually wins for everybody. Tells people that there is a tourism organization. They might be at a hotel. Now they'll say, hey, look, I didn't know that this was going on, or I could do that. So it's sharing information, trying to spread the information across all of our members. We encourage them to do a social post, to tag us, and those that can distribute our travel books and our flat maps for us. 114 of those members of the 200 are 115, I guess, are Nelson members. 58 collect the hotel tax, and 28 of those are in Nelson. Short-term rentals is a bit of a tough go because I don't have direct communication with them because, as you know, Airbnb and such, you don't have a direct email or anything. So we do reach out to people and try to get them to be members with us, but we only have 9 so far from Nelson that we're aware of. It would be great to get more of them, but you know, it's a slow go, and hopefully they value and they do know that we're out there. We're doing an artist database. We're working with NDAC right now, and also with Paul Heinrichs. We've hired him to put it together. It'll be a pretty comprehensive list of all the artists from dance, theater, clay, woodworking, you name the discipline, and hopefully we'll have that list for future use when we reach out to have opportunities, maybe for funding opportunities. Or I do get calls and people say, hey, I'm having a wedding and I'd love to have a musician, or I'd love to have this or that. We can give them the database and they can then contact the artist that way. Our AGM's coming up in June. Hopefully you guys can attend. It'll be hopefully a celebration. We've done an amazing job, all of us, in keeping our community vibrant and alive and pretty darn healthy considering the circumstances that are going on through this pandemic. Destination BC put a prediction forward back in February. And so they put the optimistic, the mid-range, and the pessimistic. My board sat with that and we came up with the ultra pessimistic. So we're not a pessimistic board, but we were very hesitant to assume that travel was going to actually even be alive in July. It might happen if the vaccines continue to roll out and the variant changes, but we went with an ultra pessimistic anticipation of movement of travel. No one knows what's really going to happen. It's really just allows us to budget and for us to consider where we're going to spend our money at what time of year and how. Next one. Financials. At this point, like I said, the money is up and down. Every month it changes based on what the travel restrictions are. It's anyone's guess what next month will be. Summer was awesome, as I said. We also get funding from Destination BC, Destination Canada. We applied for CUES and Work BC. We got some funding from them. We applied for another grant called the Community Affected Funding Program. We got that, which was great. We did a research project with that funding and we completed it. And that actually is moving us into the development of an app. It's kind of an audio mobile app. And we're just going to be putting a demonstration little website together to make sure that the platform we've chosen is the right platform for us. And that'll be really exciting. And it would have been great to have had it during COVID because people could travel around in their own car, on their bicycle, and learn about the area, the history, the places, what's going on, etc. So that grant is allowing us to move forward with that. We did cash in our GIC. It's sitting in our checking account. And it'll be there until we get through this pandemic. Our year end is March 31, and our AGM is coming up in June, as I had mentioned. So what's next? Continue to keep front of mind. Really, that's the most important thing, to let people know that we're here and when they can travel to come to this area. Continue building our website. We are evolving everything. The content's constantly changing. The maps are evolving. New members are coming on. And Checking Canada is another thing, if anyone has heard of it. I won't get into it too much, but it's an OTA and it's run through a Canadian company. So no longer would you have to pay a large percentage, a hotel pay a large percentage out to an OTA. We would go through Checking Canada. So Nelson Community Tourism website will become an actual aggregated pricing, sort of like I don't know, booking.com kind of thing, but the bookings will go direct to the hotel. We will just aggregate all of the content. And so we'll be implementing that in the next couple of months, and that'll be added to our website. So we're constantly doing something. We're trying to stay front of mind to potential visitors, and we're working with the local communities. And thank you, City of Nelson, for working with us and supporting us. And I think we're doing okay. So it's devastating, but we're doing okay considering. So thank you.
Thanks, Diana. Thanks very much. Any questions? We'll pull down the presentation now. Here we go. Councillor Renwick, Councillor Woodward, next.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a comment, Diana, and I don't know if I see Andrea's, looks like she's still with us, but I just wanted to say how lucky we are to have you and your team, and Andrea, you and your team, and Tom and the team down at the chamber to be, to do what you guys did for us last year, as well as with city staff, and what a great job you continue to do. And, it's what sets us apart here, and it's people like you and the people that work with you and for you. And I just want to say thank you very, very much. And Diana, good to see you. I know you just live down the road, but this whole COVID thing, we don't see each other anymore. Nice to see you. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Councillor Renwick. Councillor Woodward, go ahead. Diana, did you want to say something?
Oh.
Councillor
Thank
Woodward,
you.
go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor. Diana, thank you. It's heartbreaking and challenging, but I do want to say that what I have noticed that out of COVID has come a bunch of silver linings in a bunch of different sectors. And when you were going through your presentation, I recognized that though this 2020 and 2021 are going to be hard years for sure, hopefully easing up in 2022, but you're going to have built a bunch of really amazing assets that you can use after all this is over, like hiring Paul, for example, to do that database of artists. Like that's going to be endlessly fruitful. for those artists in our community. And, just really tightening your bind with all the tourism sector in here and helping each other out. I really feel like that's going to just be, fuel to help move us on from this. And I think so. I think there are a bunch of silver linings. I've definitely seen silver linings in like getting people housed because of COVID, working on the climate change issue really seriously because of COVID. There's been a bunch of different avenues, and it seems like tourism is going to have to shift, but good things will come out of it too. So I just want to thank you for your efforts and being so positive through all of this challenge.
Thanks. Yeah, luckily you weren't on the phone call with me yet. It wasn't so positive. Yeah.
Oh, I'm trying to be a positive person out of all of this.
I appreciate it, and we need that. We need a little bit of humor in this. We need to lighten. It's so heavy out there, so I do try to keep things a little bit on the light side if I can.
But you are building some really great tools that you can use for years to come after this all.
Yeah, and that's intentional. All of the asset building, absolutely. Yeah.
Further questions? Councillor Page and Councillor Morrison next.
I think Councillor Morrison was before me. Do you want to go ahead?
Sorry,
Oh,
I didn't see your hand,
it was
Janice.
like a tie.
It's
It was a tie,
yeah.
Keith. So, anyways, I'll just say thank you. I sort of echo what Councillor Renwick had to say, and I think in your graphics here, as I look at in terms of the financials, I was thinking that we've been closed here since May. So my contributions to the MRDT have been zero. I kind of think like it would have been good to have left us small owners out of the provincial taxation loop, and you would have still been getting my $135 or whatever I was paying as a membership as a accommodator. You would have had more money from me if that had been the same plan that you have this last year. But I just want to say it's just been an excellent campaign, and talking about things that we're doing is that we had takeout from the Main Street Diner tonight for our interlude here. Mike ran down and got it. So we're trying to really make a point of at least once a week to look at ordering from restaurants here in town. And not everybody can afford to do that. I find myself quite fortunate to be able to do that, but I've never had so many meals out, I don't think, as I have had in the last year. But I love the campaign, and I want the dog that's in that picture underneath the bridge that Madeline took.
You have to talk on that one. Yeah. Well, I'm going to be reaching out to all of you to help us with that dining campaign here this week. So get ready.
Excellent. Councillor Page.
Yeah, thank you. Everyone's obviously celebrated the great communication, and it is top notch. I use your tags as much as I can as I go about my social media. So I won't fluff you guys up any more than you already have been, because you've well deserved for sure. What I would ask is that I guess maybe to carry something a little bit back to the board as you go into your AGM and election of new directors, and that's the carrying those opportunities to kind of mitigate some of the downsides of the tourism industry, which is, it's not always roses for everything. There's always a give and take here. And that's specifically around some of those opportunities to be available for partnership on the housing side of things, availability to help us figure out some of the economic values that go along. I know there'll be a letter you guys will be receiving shortly from the regional district, recreation and trails, surrounding the asks that we continually get around tourism-based recreation. And it's a position we're not always in the best place to answer those questions, but we need stronger partnerships between our recreation tables, our tourism tables, and our NADP tables to kind of address what is and is not delivering broad economic value and what we should be supporting. So it's I guess that piece to look to deepen those connections into some of the infrastructure that tourism supports and draws upon, and how we can make that sustainable long term to mitigate some of those negative impacts that they have and support everybody. Anyway.
Yeah, no, I look forward to getting the letter. And yeah, currently our money is used, as you know, for marketing. We do have a small infrastructure fund. But yeah, if we can get a letter and work together, we might be able to shift some of the funding to areas that are directly tourism related through our MRDT that we collect through a request to Destination BC. So yeah, definitely,
Yeah.
send the letter. Yep.
It's coming. Thanks, Diana.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Diana. Further to Councillor Renwick's comments around the work that you're doing, but I can recall, Councillor Morrison can attest to this, not that many years ago there was a struggle, should there be a Chamber of Commerce, should we fund the Visitor Information Centre, etc. And I remember Dave Cherry at the time saying, you know, it's an investment in the future, and you know, really he hit the nail on the head. You don't realize it at the time, but now when we look back, and as it was touched on a number of times tonight, the strength of having all these different groups in our community that clearly have rallied around in the last year. It's been outstanding, really. And I think that's been a real benefit to our community in so many ways. Just seeing the people that are hanging in there, that haven't turned off the lights and haven't thrown away the keys and said, look, I live here, I want to be here, and I'm going to continue doing what I have to do to make it work. And your organization, and the same with Andrea and Aaron earlier on, with the work they're doing and the work that Tom's doing at the Chamber, etc., has really set us apart, and it's part of our base and our cornerstone that's going to help us get through COVID going forward. An interesting thing happened on the weekend. Had our grandchildren together, Pat and I, and not all of them. We three of them live in Alberta, and we haven't seen them for quite some time. But the ones that are here, speaking of projects and the mural project, the kids are calling our building the Heart Building now.
Nice.
Which I thought was kind of neat, you know, because you know, as a little kid, you see that differently than what, you know, my generation were calling it the White Building or the White Elephant or whatever, right? And here you have a younger group coming up to see that big mural on our building, and what a neat thing for them to say, like the Heart Building. Isn't that a terrific piece? And that's just one mural in dozens of them that are now in our community, and there'll be more of them to come. So there's no question, as Councillor Woodward said, there's a silver lining out there, and we're very well positioned to take advantage of that. So Deanna, thank you so much for your presentation, and you know, the photographs that you get are just outstanding. I don't know where you source them, but I just love looking at your websites and the posts and so on, but they're just outstanding. Outstanding pictures of our community. It makes us all very
well.
proud.
Get your camera up, everybody. Yeah, get your cameras on up, because our initiative is going to have you guys taking some photos here in the next couple of weeks. So
good,
get ready.
All right.
Thank you.
All right. Take care. Thanks very much.
All right. Thank you, everybody.
Yeah. Okay, I think we have Scott Spencer in the team there somewhere. I did see his name earlier on. And if this presentation comes up, do you have it up there? It's not coming up on my computer. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Hydro vegetation.
Neil Dermody is going to be doing the presentation tonight, so I'll just sit back and listen.
Okay, can everyone hear me all right?
I can't see you, but we can hear you.
Do you really want to see me, Mayor?
I can think of worse things.
That was a rhetorical question.
Just buying time when he looks for the button.
I thought it was Neil
Okay.
Diamond. I thought it was Neil Diamond we were getting. It turned out it's not Neil Diamond.
Sorry.
People are just fleeing the website.
Okay, can everyone? Yeah, can everyone see the presentation?
Yes, we can, Neil. Yeah, thank you.
Okay. Okay, great. So firstly, I'd like to thank yourself, Mayor Dooley, and Council and guests for the opportunity for us to present some of the good work Nelson Hydro's been doing concerning vegetation management. So the vegetation management best management practices were developed with utility industry subject matter experts, myself being one of them. So the other two people involved were John Cathro and Bruce Blackburn, and they've done similar work for BC Hydro and Fortis BC concerning vegetation management. And in discussions with them after we signed off on what we're going to call the finished documents here concerning the best management practices, they both consider the Nelson Hydro best management practices as best in class when compared to BC Hydro and to Fortis BC. And the intent of the best management practices are to effectively manage vegetation, to ensure safety of the public, and also to ensure reliability of our infrastructure. So the following documents are part and parcel of the best management practice. So there's the best management practices themselves. There's also a nesting bird best management practice, the public engagement framework, and the Nelson Hydro Vegetation Management Consent Record Form. And I will talk about each of these in subsequent slides. So the best management practices, these provide specific, efficient, effective procedures and specific values for work around the public and our infrastructure. And it informs the public when we're going to be doing and what we're going to be doing. It's a living document, so it will be updated in a consultative approach to engage our customers and our vendors who are assisting us with the vegetation management. It also allows us to identify longer-term work by means of prescriptions, which I'll describe a little bit later. And so if we're going to be, for instance, in 2021, this fiscal year, our work is concentrated in the city, which isn't to say that there won't be vegetation management work on the South Shore and the North Shore. But we devote a large part of our budget this year to working in the city, and the city of Nelson has hired a certified utility arborist and an arborist. And our certified utility arborist is the person who's the qualified person assisting us in putting together our prescriptions. So a prescription is a document developed by the qualified professional. So this would be Gord Watt, our certified utility arborist, and it clearly states and outlines the works that are required or planned for an area. And this work is to ensure clearances around our plant, so distribution, transmission lines, substations, that type of thing. Prescription acts as a guideline for both Nelson Hydro staff and our contract crews, and clearly articulates the intent of what we're trying to achieve, which is ensure reliability, customer safety, and also takes into effect visual aesthetics and work in proximity to our ratepayers' private properties. The work should not deviate from what is outlined in the prescription at the beginning, because the prescription lays out work. It considers riparian areas, nesting birds, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And when we're cutting up to and sometimes on some of our ratepayers' properties, we engage them prior, let them know what our intent is. We want to work out a resolution with them, and when they agree to the resolution, which at times requires us to remove some of their vegetation to the ground on their property, we go through that with them, and they sign the consent form, and we save that just so that we're very clear and transparent with our ratepayers. And the prescriptions are going to be posted on the Nelson Hydro website and to social media to inform the public when we are planning to do these veg management activities in their neighborhoods. So this is an example of the application one of the applications we're using to identify our prescriptions. This is an application called Fulcrum, and this is a screenshot right out of Fulcrum. So the bulk of the material or the defined work is at the bottom underneath the picture of the map there. You can see there's three 3 work packages identified. One at 1524 Falls Street, 1423 Kootenay Street, and another one at 1423 Kootenay Street. We've broken the city or our entire service area into a grid map. So the part you see there on the grid map is just, that's map F15. So Gord has identified how much work it's going to take. So a crew complement of 2. The work required is to remove a tree. Quarter of a day. They're only going to have to set the truck once, and there is a property concern, which would mean, and if we drilled into that, it would tell us exactly what it is, but I can tell you that that is probably, there is potential that a statutory right-of-way does not exist, so we might be potentially in trespass, or the vegetation is within the property boundary of one of our ratepayers. And the second, or this, the second part of our accompanying documentation is a public engagement framework that we've developed as well. And the public engagement framework is very important in that, again, we want to be very transparent with the ratepayers. So the objectives of our public engagement process are to ensure a clear, consistent communication between the utility, our customers, and the general public. We want to define roles, responsibilities within the engagement process for our staff, our crews, and our contractors. It provides an efficient and effective platform for communication that includes print media, social media, a website, which would be the Nelson Hydro or the City of Nelson website, email, and it also ensures that Nelson Hydro vegetation management activities are clearly articulated and understood by all stakeholders prior to work proceeding. Am I going too fast?
No, it's good.
Okay, and then the third part of the best management practices is, of course, nesting bird best management practices. So once we've laid out the prescription, we're going to have a qualified professional, and in this case, likely a biologist, go ahead of the work. So we will identify many months of work going through the summer, and different species of work or birds, of course, nest at different periods of the year. So we would have this qualified professional, a biologist, go through every 2 weeks. So in anticipation of the next 2 weeks of work, to identify whether or not there were roosting or nesting birds in certain trees. And if they did identify nesting birds, then they would demarcate that tree and ensure that the vegetation management crews did not disturb that tree while there was nesting birds within it. And as you can see here, the nesting period for our area is March 15th to August 15th, which covers a very huge window of our opportunity to perform vegetation management in the summer. So we do perform vegetation management all 4 seasons, but the bulk of it, of course, where we get the biggest payback is in this area that overlaps with the nesting bird season. And the fourth part of our, that's consistent with our best management practices, is our veg management consent record form. So this is a document that our qualified professional, and in this case, it's generally Gord Watt, our certified utility arborist, who goes out, identifies potentially contentious issues. So are we in trespass? Does the statutory right-of-way need to be worked out, or is the vegetation encroaching on our plant on private property? And in any one of those 3 cases, we want to deal with them up front, be very transparent, engage the ratepayer, the property owner, work out an acceptable resolution with the property owner, and in most cases, we're hoping that they're going to sign this document. There may be cases where, and we've run into this a few times, where the vegetation on their property might consist of, suppose their children's tree fort, so there's sentimental value there. And there's some hesitation about them wanting it removed, of course. So in that case, we would trim it so that we can maintain our utility clearances. But we would want to inform the homeowner or the property owner that there is some liability, and by not allowing us to remove that property at our cost at that time, that they need to maintain those clearances if that tree is on their property. And if there were something to happen, so suppose a windstorm came by and blew down the tree from their property onto our plant, there's potential that the utility might need to invoice them to perform the correct or to clean up the work. Oh, it appears I ran through that pretty quick. So was there any questions, or Scott, do you think I missed anything? One thing I would like to mention is the full documents. So there's these 4 documents I went over, as well as 3 pest management plans. So one for stations, one for right-of-ways, and one for wood pole structures are also on the Nelson Hydro Vegetation Management website, and the links are fairly easy to find. And there's my dog. Cody, stop it. Okay, I've quieted him down for a moment.
And so Neil mentioned, Scott, did you have anything you wanted to throw your 2 cents worth in there?
Oh, I think Neil's presented it very well, and yeah, we're doing a bit of a campaign here in the next week or so, putting out some information to the public and directing them to our website, which has more information about the vegetation management best practices that Neil just presented to you.
Yeah, and maybe in closing, I would just mention that Gord Watt, he's got a lot of experience in the veg management with both the city and other vendors, and he's very happy with the process we've developed. We've had interactions with a number of property owners, and in most cases, they're very happy with the vegetation management consent record form. And I mean, they don't, I would say 90% of the people like it, but in some cases where they don't like it, they're very happy that our intent is clearly articulated and they were engaged beforehand. So.
Excellent. Councillor Woodward.
Thank you, Mayor. So I had a very, I live at 3.5 Mile on Ridgewood Road, and we had a person down at the end here whose tree on their property, big cedar, came down and took out the power lines and landed on the highway. So that was private property situation. So is at the end of your, Neil, at the end of your presentation there, you had discussion about that a bit. I mean, is that person responsible for that accident? I didn't quite understand how that would play out in the future.
So in a lot of cases, much like with the motor vehicle accident or going forward, we want, and this is part of the media blitz or the campaign that Scott's talking about, is we want to make people, the general populace, more aware of what their responsibilities are with vegetation on their own property. In exceptional circumstances where we've got a windstorm, I don't know that we want to go to that extent yet, but we are in the process of identifying endangered trees. These are trees that we identify as an imminent danger to our plant, which are not within the statutory right of way. And we're using the vegetation management consent record form to approach these private property owners and let them know of the hazard that exists. And in some cases where the hazard is imminent or it's a public safety hazard, the utility offers to remove it immediately at that time to get rid of the public safety hazard at the cost of the utility. And if they don't agree to that, that's where we record it on the consent record form and inform them of their accountability were that tree to come down on the line. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, so that has that begun, or is that just starting?
It's just starting now, and we've just started documenting it. I've probably got about 12 copies of signed consent record forms.
Right. Okay, thank you very much. It's a very challenging issue, as we all know, but thank you for your work on it.
Can I just add to that, that the other thing we talked about was working with the, especially in the rural area, the RD wildfire, their wildfire mitigation kind of program, because it's not just the concern about falling on a power line, it's also the concern of what happens in a wildfire, and there's a whole program of how do you fire smart your property. So trying to work hand in hand so that we address the larger issues. So there, maybe on someone's property, there's they should be doing some work in to protect our infrastructure, protect their home, etc. So taking a bit of a holistic approach, but so that we'll be doing some outreach to them to work hand in hand.
Right.
Neil, does that include Crown land?
In most cases on Crown land, and an example might be the Ministry of Transport Highways. So when we build a line inside the road allowance, we don't need a statutory right of way. We're just granted access to that property, and they give us almost carte blanche to remove vegetation on the property or on the road allowance and to leave it in place there.
Okay. Thank you.
So I'm hoping. Okay.
Any further questions from Neil? Councillor Page.
Thanks, Mayor. Neil and Scott, I guess you guys through the course of our other work had been chatting with the residents out there, and I know some of them definitely had ideas, rightly or wrongly in some cases, about different ways we could be approaching the vegetation management portfolio specifically. And I'm wondering, as we've lifted some of those conversations up and used it to inform some of our, the consent record here, it seems like a very good first documentary step to kind of identify where things are at and who has or has not given us permission to deal with it. But I'm wondering if we've circled back with those groups and kind of let them know what we are incorporating, what we're not, and some rationale there, a little bit, maybe just a little bit deeper than an outreach campaign, but just to see and be heard by them. Maybe you could speak to that.
Scott?
Yep, Councillor Page, I do wonder if you could articulate what specific groups you were thinking of with reference to. Are you talking about the regional directors or other groups?
Yeah, no, I am speaking to those groups that Director Faust was pulling together, the Harrop community, and those people that have been attending some of those outreaches around the hydro rate increases. And I know reliability has floated up multiple times by those groups as a component of whether they're getting fair return for value. And I know some of them had ideas around how we coordinate labor and how we make decisions about this kind of stuff. And I'm just wondering if we were able to kind of appease some of those concerns, or maybe we didn't capture enough detail around there. I'm not sure. I wasn't in attendance in those meetings. I'm just know of them.
Yeah, certainly, Councillor Page. There's been many concerns that have been brought forward around vegetation management, and the work that Neil and John Cathro and others have been doing around our vegetation management best practices has been ongoing since 2020, and we're just happy to be fully rolling it out now. So we believe we have incorporated the many of the concerns that have been brought forward by the public over the course of the last few months. However, we will be launching some of this public awareness campaign, and I'll be looking for opportunities to engage with anyone specifically, like the citizens group in Hare Proctor that I spoke to earlier this year, and others that may be interested in hearing about what we're doing about vegetation management.
Thank you, Scott. Nicole, you're up.
Thanks for the presentation, Neil and Scott, for joining us. I'm wondering if what I'm going to ask is related to what Keith is asking. That was a little cryptic for me, but I'm noticing in your best practices, you mentioned riparian areas, wildlife, trees, and other sort of natural assets that people might want to protect. And we actually had a wildlife tree in our yard, and we were approached several years ago to take it down, and we didn't want to, and we were so resistant, and then we decided we didn't want to pay for it or be responsible for people losing their power. So we said, okay, take it, and I really appreciated the conversations we had that got me to that decision. And then about 2 years later, a new nature tree developed right beside it. So we kind of all went on that particular case. But my question returns to sort of sensitive soils and all of those things. If we're going out and looking for nesting birds, a biologist is sort of pre-screening. Are there other things being pre-screened before the vegetation management happens? Thanks.
Are you checking
Yeah,
if,
so
checking if there's kids up in the trees and so on? Making sure there's no...
we will do that, but yeah, there's a number of things within the best management practices. So we look at what the slope of the land is, whether or not, because obviously if you were to remove the tree and leave the root ball, it could decompose, and that's kind of what's holding a lot of the topsoil on the rock in certain areas or much of Nelson. So we do consider all of that, and there's without looking specifically at the best management practices, there are 7 or 8 different areas of consequence that we do consider, and that's not to say those are exclusively all, but they are explicitly identified within the best management practices, which is not to exclude other considerations.
Okay. Supplemental, Councillor?
Yeah, I guess I was looking for something a little more specific around sensitive. So I imagine a lot of the information could be gathered in advance. We don't need to just kind of each time go into clear. We know where the poles are and it's sort of iterative over time, right? So is there, has John Cathro gone through and said, well, here's some really sensitive areas, and have you then taken that information and changed what you've, I'm just looking for some examples, I guess, of those situations.
Oh, well, we are looking, so we haven't currently got a GIS system, but we would like to have it all in one area. So some sort of GIS system that identifies riparian areas, slope instability, areas where we would not want to use herbicides, things of that nature, vegetation or trees that are of indigenous importance, things of that nature. I hope that's more of the answer you're looking for.
We're getting there. Thanks. I appreciate the thought going into it for sure. Thank you for your time.
Okay.
If you're thinking, are we going to move the power lines? Probably not. Councillor Page, you had your hand up again?
I did. Maybe for the benefit of the public and from ourselves, I was wondering, as we go through, looking at the Fall Street on Street View, seeing those trees that are kind of nubbed off at the top and are probably the ones of concern. Often what's raised with me is what we're doing to restore the canopy as we go around and remove these things. And maybe we could speak a little bit to, it's probably not happening as much in the rural area, if at all, but within the city, our tree management plan calls for a two for one replacement every time we take down a tree. And And how do we go about doing that? How long do we wait before we put it? And how do we appropriately pick a site to replace the trees we're taking down that are in conflict with our power lines?
Did you want to take that one, Scott, or I can? I'll throw the hot potatoes at Scott. I can say this, like today I had Gord go and talk to a customer, and we're moving a large willow. I can't remember exactly where it is. Anyway, as part of our vegetation management best practices, we're going to pay up to $250 for them to replace that vegetation with an acceptable form of vegetation, which will not cause us heartburn in the vegetation management. So low-growing shrubs and things of that nature, rather than large spruce trees growing underneath our distribution system.
Yeah, and I'll just add that the vegetation management best practices has a link to a list of you know, approved, utility approved you know, trees and shrubs that you know, that would be acceptable for planting, and how far away from the power lines. And in terms of how the city replacing 2-for-1, if it's on city property, that will be, you know, the discussion with city, and the city tree management plan will take effect. But if it's on private property, that's when the replacement offers are made as part of that record consent form that Neil's been speaking of.
Yeah, it's also worth keeping in mind, on occasion, more often than not, a tree that's affecting our power line could potentially be affecting our sewer and water system as well. Because in the past, we had a practice of planting trees on both sides of the street, which I thought was kind of ridiculous when you plant them under a power line and come back 20 years later and cut them down. Now we do a little bit more research into where our sewer lines are, water lines are, storm sewers, and power lines before we plant. So restoring the canopy, as you said, Councillor Page, in the exact same location may not be possible in some cases. But,
and I don't think I'm expecting, I'm just wondering how we're tracking that these trees are coming down, and then putting them on some sort of counters list to replenish later in other areas of the city as opportunities present themselves. Like, I'm wondering where we're closing that loop.
Well, I think that's working with if it's on public lands, then that's what our policy applies to, not your individual private lands. So our parks department works with Nelson Hydro and our other utilities, as the mayor said, to make sure that when we're planting, that we're not creating future problems for where we can avoid them. And anytime trees and infrastructure are not the best friends in the world, but we certainly try to make it work here.
And we're very fortunate to have the utility arborists on staff, working with Nelson Hydro closely, and so they're connected with the public works crews and parks, so that we're engaging both sides of the utilities within the city. And
Scott and Neil, that picture, Neil, you had up in your presentation that showed that tree coming down. I think it's important to people to recognize that the right of way that we have to manage definitely isn't addressing that tree up on the top of that slope that's 100 feet tall and is going to crush that power line, and it can be on crown land. So I think it's just to, I guess, tame expectations that there's a number of trees that are way outside of our cutting right of way that are on steep slopes that can fall a long ways to take out power lines. I was just driving down Granite Road yesterday, I think, when I was coming home from work, and that one tree that right by Giorama Road, like if you want to go see where that tree is, and it's in the person's backyard, and it was, they've got it kind of bucked up mostly now, and it pulled it out by the roots, that tree. And so we're, we'll do a lot of work, but I don't think anybody should walk away with the illusion that in our neck of the woods that we're never going to have trees come down on power lines.
Yeah, I know that tree. I walked up to the stump there, Kevin, and it was well over 4 feet across the stump, and the root ball was huge, as you saw.
Yeah. So you're never going to, deal with those. And I understand somebody said also on that storm that it came from the east, and that comes from the west, and trees anchor themselves based on what the normal winds that you get, and that storm came from the opposite way, and that was part of the reason why we had the level of damage that we had, is their trees are just not anchored to that root. The other thing is that if people have 2 minutes, and Neil is a bit of a movie star now that we've got our vegetation management video. So they've been doing a series of short videos. So if I can indulge council, I'll share my screen and play this video for you. Everybody up for it?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
My computer cooperates here, of course. There you go.
I'm Neil Dermody. I'm the operations manager and line manager for Nelson Hydro. Nelson Hydro utilizes vegetation management best management practices, and the reason for that, want to ensure public safety around our power lines and also to assist us in reliability during storms. Vegetation management is a shared responsibility of the Nelson Hydro utility as well as private property owners. Nelson Hydro will identify vegetation management that needs to occur within our statutory right-of-ways and road allowances. But private property owners need to be aware that there's an accountability that we need to maintain the vegetation around the service entrance to their homes as well. There are times when Nelson Hydro might offer to remove the vegetation for the homeowner when there is an imminent danger of that vegetation encroaching on the utility or damaging our infrastructure. And there has to be a benefit to the ratepayer in those cases. Different species of vegetation grow at different rates. There are shrubs and brushes. There are conifers and deciduous trees. Deciduous trees grow at a much faster rate than conifers, and they typically require a different response. And the utility would prefer to cut the deciduous trees right to the ground, and in many cases apply a herbicide to prevent regrowth. Nelson Hydro utility arborist crews work all seasons of the year. Typically, we perform most of our vegetation management during the seasons where it's best applicable, those being spring, summer, and fall, although we do perform some vegetation management through the winter.
See a lot of you up there, Mayor.
What can I say? 22 views.
Nice to share.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks very much, Neil.
Thank you. It was a pleasure.
Yeah. And that program is really important because, I've made this mistake myself when I built my home up in Uphill in 1981. I stuck a tree in the front yard thinking, oh, there's a nice place for a tree, but it never even occurred to me that, 8 years later I'd be chopping the top off it because it was out around getting up towards the power lines, So anytime we can get information out to people, especially even through development services where people are coming in to build a new home or whatever, and that they know that you know, there's setbacks requirements for vegetation, not only for fire risk and the type of shrubs you plant, etc., but the distance from power lines and so forth. And this is a great first step in getting there, Neil. And you know, really, we've been missing this type of program in the past, and we've tackled it in sort of haphazard ways. And I'm so glad to see now you have people on staff and you've got a plan and you're thinking through, like, really deeply into the impacts of taking trees out and replanting, and when and where you should be cutting and when you know, I think it's excellent work, Neil, and thanks to both you and Scott and the rest of our staff for finally getting this together and investing in it the way we should have been for probably many years. And it's nobody's fault. It's just one of those things that you just don't get to sometimes. But I think the violent storms we've been getting recently has highlighted that. And I think about a year ago, I remember going to Alex and I asked him for a printout of power outages, which you can do. And it was amazing. You could just see the shift, you know, over a period of time around the amount of power outages we're getting in different parts. And, you know, not only attached to the storms, but also to how fast vegetation grows in our area. We're in a wet belt here, and it's not uncommon for a tree to shoot up 4 or 5 feet a year. And, you know, before you know where you are, it's impacting your grid and people's lives as well. And the other piece too, Neil, I'm glad you touched on a little bit as well, is the safety of our workers. And I mean, that's a high risk industry that we're in the hydro sector. And, you know, we're putting our workers at risk as well on occasion when we don't identify, here's a tree and it just has to come down somehow, you know. So thanks for your good work. And any further questions from council?
I just want to say, I just want to say thank you for the work. Sorry. I just want to say thank you for the work. It's that last storm really affected us out here on the North Shore, and we saw up on our mountainside here, hundreds of trees came down, and it was incredible to witness. But then, you know, we're out of power for 24 hours, but it's like we know how hard you guys are working out there. So thank you so much for all the effort.
Thank you.
I just want to add, you know, I think we need to thank Doug Picard. I think when you really recollect, was it 6 or 7, maybe 8 years ago, and that's when vegetation management first got on the radar, and I think you recall the controversy in Nelson when we started, you know, cutting back our boulevard trees and all of that, and people were up in arms, and you know, we had the council of the day had to, you know, stand tall and you know, support what was going on, and I think we saw the immediate results and windstorms that we just weren't getting those same outages that we had before, and we were getting those outages for, you know, minor windstorms, and you know, we had power lines going through, people had built, you know, forts and gazebos and you name it, decks and stuff on those, you know, some of those lines that ran through there, and we had to, you know, he was really one of the catalysts to, you know, do that early work to start to set the stage that, you know, this was important work. And, you know, council through Nelson Hydro has invested millions of dollars in vegetation management over the last, you know, 10 years. So it's great to have this all formalized in a document, and you know, the learnings that, you know, just negotiating with people, you know, a lot of these power lines went in the days where it was a handshake, and, you know, the proper documentation. I think you guys found some stat right-of-ways from the 1900s, and, you know, so and Fortis BC has the very same issues that they, you know, they have a whole department of people that are, you know, trying to negotiate the, you know, the rates and all those things. So again, with a very small group of folks that are very dedicated and work hard on you know, doing this cutting edge is, you know, which is the real cool thing of, you know, owning our own electric utility.
Yeah, one of the things we learned back then, Kevin, was when you cut down a tree, don't leave a tall stump, because you go back the next morning, somebody will be chained to it. So you got to cut them off tight to, cut them off tight to the ground right away. So, and any further questions? Hearing none. Well, thanks very much, you guys. You're doing a good job, and we really, really appreciate your good work. Thanks very much, Neil.
Okay, thank you very much. Good night, everyone.
Yeah, take care.
All right, take care.
All right, where am I here? Lost my screen. I think that was the last presentation, if I'm not mistaken. Is there anything council wanted to add? Hearing none. Well, could I have a motion to adjourn, please? Moved by Councillor Renwick, second by Councillor Lochtenberg. All in favour? Carried. Thank you very much. Make sure you're staying in touch with the provincial regulations around travel and wearing your mask and keeping social distance, and nothing's changed. In fact, it's got a little tougher, so let's hang in there for a little while longer. Thanks very much and take care.
Thanks.
I do have my
Good night,
vaccine
everyone.
appointment, so
Oh, you do? Excellent.
Good work.
Okay.
I'm on the list.
It pays to be a
Nice.
little older.
Yep. Okay.
I'm signed up and waiting.
Are you waiting? Oh.
I'm signed up and waiting. I'm
I
just
thought-
waiting.
I
I'm waiting.
thought if you were on the